point in relation to what Professor Clarke said earlier, though, about evil, because I really do believe that there's profound potential of evil in each and every one of us. And to that degree, it thoroughly cuts across civilization, time and space and race and class and gender. And it's precisely because of that that I don't give up on folk. That is to say, I don't give up on folk who, even though it looks as if they're involved in a thoroughly devilish behavior, I don't make a political program on it, but I don't give up on them. And this is true even in regard to certain cultural nationalism. You see that? That is also true. I mean, you know, Professor Cornell, he's undergone some fundamental transformations and metamorphoses after going to captivity and jail and so forth. You see, he's in process just like everybody else. That's the reason why I'm in dialogue with Minister Louis Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, and others, because they're human beings who are in process and who are open to being pushed in the same way I need to be pushed.
That's right.
And so just from a Christian point of view, I always give folks another chance. That don't mean that you're not critical of what they did, no doubt. But at the same time, folk can surprise you sometimes if you don't give up on them. And this is part of the genius of the Elijah Muhammad.
Teach hard. That's right.
He was able to look at folk everybody else that gave up on and said, I can actually provide some new being for you if you get in on the program. Look at Brother Malcolm down there in the cell in Norfolk thinking he ain't worth a dime, still selling drugs on the inside. And Elijah said, no, I'm going to turn you around, Lord brother.
Indeed, indeed.
Redemption ain't going
Malcolm, in process. That doesn't mean that, and I'm not really refuting so much Professor Clarke, but I'm trying to provide a certain framework such that the process of folk can be affirmed even as we tell the truth about them in terms of where they were or where they are.
Teach hard, brother.
Well, my give up patience is a little shorter than Professor West. I mean, I've already given them a chance. And I don't see much in them except another hustle. And Melania Karinga, what he went to jail for doing needs to be explained. He went to jail for mutilating black women. And the women he mutilated were dark complected. The women in his harem, he has a harem, light complected, almost white. So in addition to having an ego problem, he might have a color problem too.
That's right. Come on. Break it down. Bring it home.
He speaks well. He performs well. We have to make a distinction between these academic vaudeville shows. Yes, sir. Give us knowledge. We cannot accept a performance as fighting our liberation. We can enjoy a performance, but don't think it moves you forward. It helps the bank account of the performance. So, I really think Karinga is more of a performer than anything. I don't see anything enlightened coming from him. I like Al Sharpton personally because he's something that is useful in history. He's an alarmist.
That's right, brother. That's right.
Alarmist Alarm is solved, no problem. But they call attention to problems in such a way
That's right.
they won't let them leave the agenda until someone else try to solve it. So they serve a purpose with that big mouth, the articulation.
Yes, sir.
They point to put that fire out, put that, do that one, do that one, do that one, you know. Otherwise you go to sleep on the problem.
Indeed.
But the alarm is going to let you sleep. And then you do something about it. Give me $1, give me that. Yeah, $10 here, $10 here. So you don't feel good unless you make some kind of contribution to that little cause. Well, it's kind of a Baptist con game, but it makes it work.
What Baptist?
I grew up a Baptist. I was a Baptist Sunday school teacher.
There it is.
And I enjoy the Baptist faith, although I think they're the loudest and the wrongest.
It was Baptists who founded Pentecostalism in Sula Street in Los Angeles. They can make a joyful noise too.
I go home to Georgia, where I grew up in Columbus. I go to different my relatives' churches. The last time I went to a church where a Baptist minister was imitating a Baptist minister. He did a little hollering around the pulpit. And he turned around and said, "Did you hear me, church?" He ain't said nothing to hear. Do I have a witness? Witness for what? But I can tell you one thing about the Baptists. They are not dull. Interesting people.
Your people.
We're looking at one of the legatees of that Baptist tradition right here. Not dull at all.
But I can tell you one thing. They can sing.
Yay! That's right.
They can sing.
See, can we keep on that track in terms of discussion of the things that have made African people survive, persevere? Many of the cultural things that both of them have been talking about. Instead of like a, I don't want to say dichotomous kind of exclusion of one tradition for the sake of the other, we want to keep the African tradition that's in this country. It seems that the agreement is clear. That where the disagreement may come in, I mean, we're all trying to figure that out at this point, but I want to ask a question framed in the context of perhaps Marimba Ani and her work, Yurugu, also let's serve again. In terms of the cultural location of African people and their strive, our sense of agency, our sense to survive, our hope, through the encounter with the absurd, at what moment do we lose that sense? Could it perhaps be a moment of cultural connection with a cultural tradition that does not belong to us? And then the extension of that in the future as we deal with nihilism in this era. The question I guess I have is, how do we look toward the future to solve the problems in the African community? And maybe perhaps some of those problems could be solved by dealing with the culture of African people, which seems, at least, I know Dr. Myers was sitting there a minute ago, I guess she had to, I don't know where she went, but she could say a lot better than I could. She's done a lot of work in this field. The African cultural tradition, not a monolith, certainly, a dynamic process, but one with underlying cultural unity. And I'm sure you know you've done the reading about the objectification of human beings, the separation of subject and object we see in European thought, and maybe not seeing that prevalent in African thought. And I can only speak about classical Africa because we learned the language. It seems like you can't talk about a culture until you learn the language. So in learning the language of Medu Neter, hieroglyphics, it's clear that many of these concepts we see in Europe, at least through the interpretation that we try to get of Medu Neter, instead of we had to use Gardner and the Europeans at first, but we moved beyond that using our dynamic African culture in this context to then analyze the Nile Valley, don't appear. So how do we solve the problems of nihilism with some of the cultural strengths that you've been talking about, both of you gentlemen, because it seems like y'all agreeing on that in terms of African culture being very, very prominent in our solution. You want to go first, Professor Clarke?
He said no.
I think there's a number of different levels to look at it. I think the important thing to keep in mind that anytime we look at language and cultures, it's always important to highlight a particular period, historical